All right, well, if you are watching this on YouTube, welcome. We will get started in about 5 minutes or so. So we have some attendees starting to come in. This is being live streamed and recorded. So if you are a member of the public and don't want to be recorded, just turn your camera off. All right. Corey, thanks for bearing with us with the panelist settings, but we see that you're here and welcome. Okay, great. Live stream is working. Fantastic. Corey, you are our only member of the public right now, and so if you wouldn't mind just making sure that you can see the Q&A. Great. Okay. Great. We can see the Q&A. That is good. Great. And we have some other individuals joining. We still have about 4 minutes, so welcome everyone. Good to have you here. Is it raining hard throughout the Puget Sound region? Should we pull up a map and everyone put pins on where they are and just how soggy their afternoon is?
It's been raining pretty hard here in Bothell, so I can confirm that.
Okay. So North Puget Sound is certainly soggy. Zach, do you want to share your screen so that when people arrive, they know they're in the correct meeting? Very good. And I should, David and Ryan, if you wouldn't mind turning off any of your incoming team sounds or notifications, we can share info how to do that. But
Yeah, that's my default setting. Yeah, definitely.
oh, what good focus you must have.
Not sure about
I should be silenced, but if you're hearing something, please let me know.
Yep. So far, I haven't heard anything. Just want to be proactive. I will do the same here. Do not disturb. Okay. Great. I'm glad the live stream is working. We'll get started in just a minute or so. All right, closed captioning is enabled for members of the public who are joining us. If you'd like to use that feature, we'll show you in a minute how to do that, but that is now turned on. Welcome, everyone. It's not quite the 1 o'clock hour, so we'll give everyone a moment. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here, everyone. Okay, we have a number of introductory slides, and so if people join a little late, I think that should be okay. So I will declare this meeting started. My name is Sophie Glass. I'm a facilitator with Triangle Associates, and I have the honor of supporting this webinar today. So this webinar is going to be focused on equity and delivery system planning. Go to the next slide, Zach. Thank you. So these webinars, the goal that PSE has is to really grow these webinars to have a huge tent of people to participate. And kind of a best practice in our field is when things get big and inclusive, we use webinar features. So the chat is something that you can message the host with. The Q&A, that feature, the question and answer, that's where you're going to be putting all of your questions in the meeting, and we'll be sharing those out with everyone. If you need closed captionings, you can press that. And then at the end, during the public comment period, that's when you can raise your hand and provide those verbal comments. So you can go to the next slide, please, Zach. So my request for you is just engage constructively and courteously. I'm going to try to guide the group process to answer as many questions as possible, knowing that some of them won't be able to be answered on the spot. Those will go into a feedback report. And we're going to try to focus on today's topic, and public comments will occur after PSE's presentations, but the Q&A, we've dispersed it throughout the meeting, and so hopefully you'll get your questions answered in a timely way and try to get everyone out of here no later than 2 o'clock. Next slide. Okay, so as you all know, PSE meetings often begin with a safety moment, and this is about driving safely at night. In case you missed the memo, daylight savings time is over. None of us will forget today at 4:40. Your windshield and headlights. Check your tire traction. Minimize distractions, and don't drive. Not drive for all of our benefits. Okay, next slide. Okay, my audio is a little bit spotty. I'm going to turn off my video and work on that. So give me 1 sec. Today's speakers are David Landers, who's the director with system planning, Ryan Lambert, who's a manager with electric system planning, and myself. Next slide. It might be frozen. There we go. So our objectives today is to provide that baseline understanding of delivery system planning, solicit input regarding priorities for community-based resources, and gather input regarding the equitable treatment of measures that can enhance distribution carrying capacity. Next slide, please. So here's our agenda. We mentioned in the beginning, it'll be David and Ryan alternating off, talking about delivery system planning, the IRP, those tools for distributed energy resources and community-based resources, other considerations in the DSP process. We'll have a poll at the end and wrap with public comment. Next slide, please. Okay, very good. I think those were all my introductory remarks. And my notes say that, David, you are first up here to share a little bit about what delivery system planning is.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sophie, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I'll take the first set of slides here, and I would like, since we have a broad group and probably maybe at different levels of understanding of our delivery system planning process and actually the the infrastructure that we plan, construct, maintain, and operate to ensure that everyone's energy needs are met. I'm going to start, if we go to the next slide, just talking a little bit about just getting us on a common understanding of what are we talking about when we're talking about the energy delivery system. And so this is a simplified graphic of the electrical delivery system or distribution system, as you may call it. And when we're talking about the delivery system, what we're really talking about is the infrastructure that connects the resources. So those are the sources of electrical generation with the consumers of the energy or the load that is being served. And if you look at this graphic, you can see a generation source in the top left. You could have wind turbines, solar, hydro, any types of resources at a central station location connecting into transmission lines, which are the large, this is indicated here by large lattice tower structures. Not all transmission is on that large of a structure, but the transmission lines then bring the energy that's generated from central station locations into neighborhoods and communities to be distributed to customers and consumers of the energy. We reach a substation, which transforms that high voltage power down to a voltage that's appropriate for distribution into the community. And then we move our way out through distribution lines. I'm making my way counterclockwise around the slide here. And this is really where we're starting to see a significant transformation in the way the delivery system functions and operates. As we're moving toward more distributed energy resources, which is the next indicated element on the graphic here, where you may have solar panels, you may have solar battery combination of resources at a specific location in the community or a specific customer's location that not only supports that individual location or customer, but may also feed power and energy back onto the grid to help with the meeting the energy needs in the community. So previously, when we were talking about the distribution system, predominantly it was one-way flow from a central station resource out to the end users. But today, it may also be accepting power, excess power from those net generators and bringing it back into the delivery system to benefit other customers. So that's a big transformation that we're working our way through, and it's really becoming a significant component of the work that we do in our delivery system planning team, because it's really important that we ensure that adequate capacity exists to meet the demand and the energy needs of our customers at the time that they have that need, whenever that may be. We also have to make the investments and do monitoring and operation that ensures an acceptable level of reliability in that electric service to our customers. And then as the resources are becoming more dispersed across the distribution system or delivery system, we have to make sure that we are maintaining a balanced flow of energy across the system and that supply is meeting demand at all times. So just to give you a little example or size and scale of PSE's electric system, when we're looking at our electric energy delivery system, we have about 26,000 miles of power lines. About 12,000 of those are overhead, about 14,000 of those are underground. Supporting that overhead energy delivery system, we have around 350,000 poles, and we have about 387 substations. So there's a lot of infrastructure covering all of our service area, and our delivery system planning team is working every day to ensure that that system is meeting the needs of our customers, meeting the needs of our communities, and supporting our transformation to decarbonization and cleaner energy resources. Just to give you an example of some of the work we've done in the previous year, 2022 alone, we inspected over 37,000 poles in the system. We ended up needing to replace about 800 of those that were inspected, and then we did reinforcement on about 600 poles that enables those that lengthens gives us more longevity on those existing poles to optimize the useful life of our system. We also replaced about 52 miles of underground cable last year, and then that's maintenance and upkeep for reliability. But then we also spent a lot of investment in helping to automate the grid, bring greater reliability, and enable us to better adapt distributed energy resources or clean energy resources into the grid. One example of that kind of work is we installed remote condition monitoring equipment on transformers in 11 substations. So that enables us to monitor conditions of those substations remotely through telemetry versus having to go physically on site and do inspections on those substations. So it gives us more real-time monitoring on condition, health of those assets, and helping us to identify when there's something may be starting to materialize that could cause an outage, and we can proactively go and make a repair before that outage materializes. When we're talking about equity and delivery system planning, we're thinking about who are our vulnerable populations, our highly impacted communities that we serve, and how do we ensure that we are supporting them and helping to advance energy equity. And the example that I just shared with you on substation monitoring equipment, in those projects last year, we prioritized those, and we went and we made those investments in those substations in areas that were serving our vulnerable populations and highly impacted communities per the equity metrics that we were evaluating. So wanted to give an example, overview of energy delivery system, what the electric system consists of. And then when we're talking about decisions that are equity-based in delivery system planning, that's an example of one decision that we've made, a planning decision related to equity. We go to the next slide. This is the natural gas system. I'll not spend as much time speaking about it. It's a little more simplified than the electric system is. And unlike the electrical system that's moving toward bi-directional energy flow, the natural gas system is very much a one-way flow. Actually, some people think of compressor stations and you need to build up pressure of the gas to get it to flow through the pipelines. We actually have no compression in our natural gas delivery system. There is ample pressure in the Northwest pipeline that runs the I-5 corridor, from which the gas supply comes into our region to get the gas all the way to the consumer's doorstep. So it's really about maintaining the integrity, the safety of the system. We do have some natural gas storage facilities. Unlike electricity, gas is to storage as it can be compressed and stored for use during periods of peak demand, which enables us to not need to build the capacity of the gas system out as much toward meeting peak supply needs like we do on the electric system, because we do have storage facilities. And in our system, we have Jackson Prairie, where we compress natural gas stored in underground caverns. We have Tacoma LNG, where we liquefy gas and store it in a liquid form that can be revaporized and input into the system. And then we also have a Gig Harbor peak shaving plant as well. So that's the gas system. We have about 12,900 miles of distribution pipeline, and we're continually doing maintenance and upkeep on the system to maintain a safe and reliable system. Last year, we replaced about 20 miles of main. So we have a significant main replacement program. And our investments in our gas system are driven by our transmission integrity management programs and our distribution integrity management programs. So we're very focused on maintaining a safe system for all of our customers. Everything is equally considered as far as safety is concerned. And so that's our prioritization of investments on the natural gas system. So we go to the next slide. So how do we actually determine what projects we're going to do and put together a portfolio of investments in our delivery system in a given planning cycle? There's lots of triggers that can start that process, and our system planners are constantly monitoring for triggers that could indicate a need that we need to make upgrades or changes and modifications into our energy delivery system. The arrow on the left, the planning triggers, the teal colored arrow there shows what a lot of those are. And we don't do this in isolation or in a vacuum. Our planners are heavily dependent on many other groups so that we have insight into the operational safety and health of the system, what we're hearing from our customers, what our customer requests are. That comes from our customer system projects group, our business services team. We've got our load forecast team, and therefore they're forecasting what they expect load growth to be on the system across both the gas and electric system, taking into account energy codes, other drivers, economic drivers that are impacting the growth and load on our system. We have a lot of focus on compliance and a lot of regulation requirements that we need, state, federal regulations that we need to comply with. So we've got a compliance and regulation team. And then, of course, our resource planning team that we are becoming more and more coordinated with as we're making this journey into having more distributed energy resources on the system. So any of those things can trigger a need. We have some pretty complex processes, both for analytics and as well as interaction with others. And so we are on a journey of seeking greater input and feedback from our customer and community groups, and scoping out and identifying their energy delivery and service needs within communities. And as we work our way through this slide shows shows a linear process across the bottom of, we evaluate the system, we have to think about the needs, we need to do some modeling analysis, think about alternatives, run a lot of what ifs, and come up with a recommended solution. But this is not a linear process. This is very iterative. We're consistently going back and forth and thinking about what is the best way to enhance the performance of our system, to progress us toward a clean energy future, and meet the needs of our customers from the perspective of both reliability and advancement of energy equity. So that's an overview of the delivery system, the frame of mind and the scope and focus that we have in our delivery system planning team as we are working on developing a portfolio of projects that we produce on a regular annual basis to put into our plan for investment in the system. And Sophie, we've got a section divider here. We're about to move into actually talking about some of the specifics, but I don't know if we want to pause here to see if there are any questions before we move forward.
Yes, thanks so much, David. So a lot of the questions and answers happening in the chat were really about process and platform questions. And I think Meredith is answering those. And then in terms of content related questions, let's just pause for 10 seconds or so to see if anyone has any questions or comments about your content. All right. Well, you can always, as a participant, you can always come back and ask a question later on, but it seems like there's no content questions right now. And so, Ryan, can we turn it over to you?
So actually, I'm going to jump back in and
okay, forgive me.
Section, but I'm very quickly going to hand it over to Ryan once we get moving on it. I thought I'd make the segue if we go ahead and move to the next slide, which is a divider, and go one more slide, actually moving into the content on this section. So this is a diagram that I think shows, and I don't know what others are seeing, but it looks like the graphic to the left is, there's kind of an angle cut out. We're missing about half the graphic, the bottom right corner portion of it. But I'll describe that to you as we work our way through it. So as I was talking and giving the overview of the electric delivery system, traditionally the energy utilities have been structured in a way that we have large central station generation with a one-way flow of energy that's going out to the customer's point of use. And that is significantly changing. The graphic on the bottom left really shows, you can see most of the generation portion, and then it travels across the grid. And then the portion of the graphic that's cut off here is the customers and the end users of energy. Previously, we very much had a team focused on resource planning and what are those load forecasts, and what is going to be our peak energy need, and what is going to be our overall peak capacity need and overall energy need, and evaluated how we're going to meet those resource needs. In a separate silo, we have delivery system planning, just looking at those peak capacities, thinking about how we're going to deliver energy to those customers on their peak usage day of the year, and also maintain reliability to those customers throughout the course of the year. If you now move over to the graphic on the right, this is the integrated grid that we're moving toward. We now have customers that have resources within their facility, on their home, They may be net metering customers that are supplying back into the grid. We have community renewable applications like community solar. And so we're very much having to focus on how we integrate all of those resources and maintain a balanced supply and demand, a balanced flow of energy across the system. And so that's really transforming us from separate integrated resource planning and delivery system or distribution system planning into an integrated system planning approach, and which is making it more iterative in the way we think about things and creating much greater need for coordination between our resource and our distribution system planning or delivery system planning teams. And now I'll hand it off to Ryan to let him take us to the next slide, and he'll talk about some of the actual specifics of that iterative process that we're making our way through.
Perfect. Thanks, David. Yeah, I get the pleasure of diving a little bit more into the integration and then talk a little bit about the tools that we have available and how that impacts our decision process. So thanks to everybody for joining this afternoon. My name is Ryan Lambert. I'm the manager of electric system planning. And what I get to talk about on this slide right here is just how we're integrating delivery system analysis with integrated resource planning. And it's a really exciting time because these two now more than ever actually fit well together as we look at distributed energy resources. So we'll start first with the delivery system analysis. When we're looking at needs on the system, we're now considering both wire and non-wire options for identified needs. And so where this could come into fruition is if we have like a capacity constraint in a certain area, we have to think about how we might be able to partner with our customers by doing like time of use rates or demand response or energy efficiency, or perhaps we have to build a new substation. So you're kind of looking at everything that's available for that need is what we're looking at right there. And what helps feed that is the forecasts and assumptions, which are changing now more than ever due to the electrification of vehicles and buildings. It continues to show that there's a continued load increase on the electric system. And so figuring out how we can best partner to be able to serve that need. The other thing that we see there is just the delivery system analysis requirements, local needs, specific to where the needs are, like what is happening in that particular area. And then also, what are we hearing from our customers and the requests to come up with the optimal solution? So that now feeds our integrated resource planning because we have a sense of what we might be able to provide both in terms of wire and non-wires, and which then figures out what's the avoided cost for the transmission and distribution, which then figures out how we can actually acquire resources at that level. So it's really interesting time. It's pretty cool that these two things are now linked together as we figure out where we can actually put DERs on the system and where they benefit both the system and our customers the most. And so if we go to the next slide, actually one more. So we've been evolving in 3 different areas. The first is customer utility interface. So now we have better meter data visibility more than ever. We're substantially complete with our AMI deployment, so our smart meter deployment. So we now have near real-time visibility on our meters and the performance. So we're starting to see more and more like what's happening on our system at any given moment. And we're sharing that with our customers where they can actually see their energy usage and use that to make the best decisions possible. We're also providing a hosting capacity map where customers can understand where we can connect DERs on the system based off the carrying capability of the distribution system. And then finally, we also have an interconnection portal where customers can submit applications and go through that process. Right there in the middle, you see our operational platforms. We have a few acronyms, so I'll do my best to help you out. First is our ADMS system, or Advanced Distribution Management System. Next, we have the virtual power plant. And then finally is our Distributed Energy Resource Management System, or DERM. So MS just stands for Management System, definitely like our acronyms. But all 3 of these, what they do is really help us have real-time control and visibility of our systems. And so that way we can make sure they optimally perform for our customers. So that's what we got there going in the middle. And then finally, on the far right, with planning, we're looking at non-wire alternatives, as I discussed already, looking at our hosting capacity analysis, which will feed the maps to figure out where we have carrying capability on our system. And then finally, geospatial load forecasting, which is getting to be more and more important. As I mentioned with the electrification of vehicles and buildings, we're seeing more and more load increases on our system. And what geospatial load forecasting does is allows us to predict where we expect those load pockets to exist. And so we can get ahead of it. And that way we can start to partner with our customers sooner as we develop non-wire solutions or wired solutions. And then I'll take it home on the next slide before handing it back off to David. And so when we're looking at our energy delivery system, we're really looking at it through three different lenses. First of all is equity advancement. So how can we improve the impacts we're having to named communities, and how can we address their needs? And then like looking specifically at locational community needs, like what do our customers need in terms of capacity, reliability, resiliency? What are we seeing real time from our system and the performance of it to be able to advance that? And then finally, just the benefit cost analysis itself. So with that, we're looking at, based off the projects we developed, what is the total cost of the project? What do we expect the benefits will be? Could be reliability, capacity, resiliency driven, as I mentioned before, could be safety even too. And what is the customer impact? And by looking at it through those three different lenses, we go through a portfolio optimization process to deliver the best results that we can for our customers. And we use that to be able to move forward with the portfolio. This has been developed with input from the Equity Advisory Group. We talked a lot about how we actually weight equity within the benefit cost analysis process. And what was determined was that it's better to keep it separate than try to embed it within the benefits themselves, just because you could throw off the weighting. And so when we look at projects, we layer in equity to get a full view, and then use that to figure out what we want to move forward with. So with that, I'll pause and see if there's any questions, Sophie.
Yeah, very good. Let's take a pause for questions. And I changed my Wi-Fi, so hopefully my sound doesn't cut out anymore. Apologies to the live stream participants and others. So there is some content related questions. And so let's go back to slide 13. Thank you, Zach. Okay, this is a question I'm wondering, maybe David might be a good one to answer it, but Don Marsh writes, on slide 13, we applaud the transformation to a more integrated grid and support coalescing IRP and DSP into a single process. Has the public been able to participate in delivery system planning in the past? In the future, is the only way to participate through the IRP process? How does the public do that? David, any thoughts?
Sure. So I think, historically in the past, a lot of participation has been related to project permitting, the structure around project permitting requirements. Moving forward, I think the most exciting area that I think we're really going to be able to make some headway in as we start to bring our integrated resource planning and delivery system planning together is focusing on where those distributed energy resources can bring the greatest benefit on our system, both in helping meeting the needs and enhancing the carrying capacity of the system, and optimizing the investments that we need to make in the system, as well as supporting advancement of energy equity in our communities. And so our plan for that, I think our first plan on engagement related to coordination of our resource planning and delivery system planning is as we go into our next IRP planning cycle and we start to look for requests for proposals to bring DERs onto the system, it's our intent to share those locations where we think they would be the greatest benefit to us, as well as the community equity parameter information, and seek input through our listing channels for the integrated resource planning process as to where we should place the greatest emphasis on requesting distributed energy resources to come onto our system. So I think that's going to be the next big step that we're taking, is starting to integrate that IRP and DSP work and seeking external interested party engagement in that work. Another area that we are starting to work as far as having local communities involved in delivery system planning is we are currently hosting a pilot project for community engagement around a reliability need in King County. This is the first time we've been doing this, of actually going out and engaging with communities on the needs, system information, seeking input as to the solutions that we should be considering. and developing into a portfolio. And it's our intent to move forward with building up on that pilot as that wraps up as we leave this year and move into next year, and do a local community engagement pilot. I'll call it a 2.0 as we get into 2024 to get greater experience and determine what's going to work best for us in coordinating with our communities and our delivery system planning activities.
Great. Thanks so much, David. There's one more question, not one more, there is another question on slide 16. So Zach, can you advance us? So the question goes, Ryan glossed over any details regarding a virtual power plant, which maybe in the conversation people will call a VPP. PSE has been working on this for at least a couple of years, but we don't know what the company's plans are or what the current status is. There are no details in PSE's 2023 electric progress report. I, speaking as Don, have 2 batteries with a 27 kilowatt capacity, in addition to my EV with an 80 kilowatt hour capacity. That's 100 kilowatt hour of capacity, enough to power an average home for at least a few days. When will I be able to contribute these resources to a virtual power plant? And when will PSE compensate me for that? That's the question. Ryan, David, who wants to take that one?
I'll jump in and see what additional details Ryan might wish to add. But I think from the perspective of virtual power plant, if you look at our 2023 electric progress report, our demand response programs are doing very, very well, and we have an increased target in that. And that's essentially, VPP is a dispatchable demand response event that's viewed as a resource. But I think if you look at our adjustments and targets, you see that we are being very successful in this year, and we're rolling this out. Now, as far as ability for specific customers to participate, we're working with our vendors and suppliers of the system. And, as we get that up and operational and functional, I'm sure there will be greater activities toward recruitment and an invitation of others to participate in the program. But really, I'm a bit removed from the specifics of that program. It's a lot of folks in our electric operations, system operations that are in the day-to-day operations of that. But I do know that it's going quite well, and we are successfully on track in implementing our VPP per plan.
Yeah, I'll just add, we have a PSE Flex program for residential customers. Right now, I think it's thermostat base for demand response. We would have to get back as far as the plans for battery enrollment specific to Don's question. So, and my apologies for glancing over if it wasn't intended. But the idea is as we continue to have capacity constraints on our system, we do recognize demand response as a key tool to be able to do so. And so we'll have to get back to you specifically about more details on when that'll be available.
And I'll just jump in and mention with Ryan talking about the thermostats, I think an important element of a successful deployment of a virtual power plant is that communications protocol, two-way communications, so that we are assured that when the resource is needed, that the communications structure is in place to enable us to call upon that resource. And that's a big part of the technology development and advancement and rolling out a VPP. So we may have customers that have a lot of various methods that they could provide, real-time demand response that could be aggregated into the VPP. But as we work our way through this, we're focusing on where we can do these in mass deployment through various types of technology, we have multiple thermostat vendors that have a product and communication protocols that work for us. And I think that's a key consideration as well, is having technology that we can communicate with and call upon it as a dispatchable resource, so that the virtual power plant can successfully meet loads that it's dispatched to deliver.
Thank you, David. I'm going to keep us moving because there are a few more questions on slide 16 in particular. Joel asks on this same slide here, who is the audience for the hosting capacity map, and what resources is it used for? It seems to me that the calculus for hosting a distributed battery would be pretty different than for a distributed solar system or EVSE, for example. And if you could define that acronym, that would help me. So David, Ryan, who wants to take this one?
Yeah, I can take this one. So the hosting capacity map, it's available for customers and developers wanting to add distributed energy resources in our service territory. What the map does is it provides value to the applicants because it helps avoid loss of time and application fees for planned projects by being able to see where we have capacity available for those resources. I think there was a question regarding what type of resources, it would be like battery or solar. There is, in order to get access to the map, there's a link. If you just send an email, you can get access to it. But the idea is to be more transparent around where we have carrying capacity available.
Great. Thank you for that. We're going to stay on slide 16. And so slide 16 here, a comment and then a question from Virginia. So Virginia writes, I'm glad to learn that you are considering a more integrated system, and I hope it will be very robust and resilient with appropriate use of local resources. Members of the public have been asking for this for some time. Please explain more about this and what contributed to this new emphasis. So kind of a process question. What do you think, David or Ryan?
Well, I'll speak to it at a high level in regard to a new emphasis related to this. As we're looking at our system planning and we're looking at the forecasted load growth associated with the clean energy transformation and the transformation to electric vehicles, I think we're all recognizing the old model of central station generation with adequate sized transmission, distribution, substation equipment to deliver power to the end uses would be significantly more investment than utilizing distributed resources throughout the system where they can be located, both utility owned as well as community owned and customer owned resources. And so I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, but I think the important thing that we recognized is that we have a lot of investment that's needed in a very short window of time to hit our state's Clean Energy Transformation Act renewable energy goals. And to get there, we need to deploy all the resources. And to do that effectively and to maintain a reliable system for our customers, we have to coordinate this investment. We have to coordinate the utilization of these resources. And so that's why we have this, I'll call it a new and heightened element of focus in making this a success.
Yeah, and as far as equity advancement, I'll talk about it in a few kind of blocks here. So first of all, I'll say we're using the highly impacted community information and vulnerable population information to figure out where we should be targeting distribution system improvements. So we're using it as far as like the needs identification step. We're currently in the midst of doing some community outreach, just starting that, where we're going out to, we're piloting going out to a community to get their feedback around what we should be doing in that particular area. And we expect to do a little bit more there. Third, I'll say when we do the optimization process itself, we're looking at it through an equity lens to see that at least a minimum percentage of our investments are going to those highly impacted communities. And then fourth, I'll say is as we're actually delivering on the projects, making sure we have that in mind as far as the areas that they're impacting to be able to help prioritize that. So I'll talk about it. Those are the kind of four ways I look at that. And then to answer the second part of the question, I think there was a link provided as far as where the highly impacted communities list is.
All right, so Ryan and David, I just want to do the batch of slide 17 questions. Does that work for both of you? Okay, so Zach, next slide, please. So let me make sure. Okay, so on slide 17, Don did have a question about the detail in the equity advancements section and list of census block groups. PSE provided information in the chat about highly impacted communities. And then there was a follow-up question. And so Don, I flagged it for the PSE team to include this in the feedback report, because I think they're going to take some minute to look at the data and all the rest. So stay tuned is my short answer there. Other question on slide 17. I see, this is from Joel Nightingale. I see customer impact as part of the BCA analysis. BCA analysis isn't typically designed to handle enduring distributional benefits. How does PSE consider distributional equity into its DSP process in tandem with its BCA analysis? And if you can define BCA for everyone watching, that's great too.
Yeah. I'll take a stab, and David, feel free to jump in. So BCA, I believe, is benefit to cost analysis, benefit cost analysis, kind of what's shown here on the slide. And the way we've looked at it is that we do keep it separate. We do a BC analysis for the project, so it comes out with a ratio of, let's say, 1.5, whatever the number is, and then we look at based off the projects that we have. We look at what percentage are going to highly impacted communities, and using it separately to then figure out which projects we want to move forward with. And so it's a separate lens and a separate view, but it's being considered in the process to make sure we're making an impact to those areas. David, you want to say anything more about that?
I'll just add on to that and mention that, you know, the red box that we have on this slide points out and that we've had input from our equity advisory group this year, and actually in the way that we have done distributional equity in our project portfolio development has been based upon feedback that we received from the equity advisory group and input that we received from them in March of this year that actually enabled us to adjust our approach to distributional equity and ensure that we established equity targets that we wanted to hit, equity advancement targets that we wanted to hit in our portfolio optimization. And Ryan has utilized that with his electric system planning team in the portfolios that we have developed and produced this year. So it's a component in our analysis, and it's been incorporated into our analysis based upon the input that we received from our equity advisory group this year.
Seeing that there are no other open questions right now, I'm going to encourage us to move along so that we can have polls and public comment. So next slide, please, Zach. Great. My notes say that, David, you're going to take this one. Is that correct? Sure. If you want to go ahead and move us to the next slide. Yep. We've actually covered a lot of this in responding to the questions that we received, but this was really just a timeline of where we are today, where we see ourselves going. So right now in 2023, as I spoke, we have received the input regarding equitable distribution of benefits into our planning process, and we've integrated that into our portfolio decision optimization tool. And we've utilized that in producing our 2025 portfolio of projects and our 2026 portfolio of projects. One kind of side note I'll make there is our system planning team we're always working a few years in advance. So the things that we are implementing in our planning process, the enhancements that we're making, really won't have impact in actual project construction and delivery for a few years, just because of the permitting cycle and the development cycle and the acquisition cycle to do that work. So just to point out there that the equity parameters that we brought into our analysis this year have influenced the 25 and 26 portfolios for our delivery system projects. And then as we move forward into next year with additional advancements, that will be influencing our 2027 portfolio. The third bullet here in 2023, I spoke about this earlier. We piloted local community engagement for delivery system planning work. This was in the Maple Valley area. Still working through that. Have encountered some challenges in engaging with our customers of greatest need, and so we're making sure that we are proactively reaching out in a way that enables them to engage with us, and we hear from everyone we need to hear from in a community regarding the proposed system improvements that we're looking to make. And so as we move forward into next year, we intend to build on this pilot, moving into a community engagement pilot 2.0, and also continue to refine our investment decision optimization tools with the feedback that we're receiving. And then, as I talked earlier, further integrating in our delivery system planning with our integrated resource planning. Ideally, where we're wanting to get to there is we want to make sure we understand where DERs bring the greatest benefit, both to the grid as well as to enabling our communities and supporting our communities to advance energy equity. And so that's what we're looking forward to in 2024. And then 2025 is still, we're on a journey. It's going to be continual improvement and process improvement and growing in our ability to make equity the central tenet of what we are doing, and bringing all of our customers along on the journey for the clean energy transformation. So 2025 will build upon the outcome of our distributional equity analysis pilot that will be ready by then, and continue to mature our engagement practices in system planning. Very good. David, any other final thoughts while I see if there's any open questions? I'm not seeing any right now.
I think final thoughts, just to kind of put a bow around what we've talked about. Really wanted to give a high level overview, help make sure everyone is in on a common level of understanding of what we're referring to when we talk about delivery system planning, recognizing that's both our electric system and our gas system, and we're seeking to think about those more holistically and coordinated as we move forward. And then equity is just is a foundational tenet of what we need to be thinking about moving forward. And we've made some significant upgrades and enhancements to our process, and we'll continue to look forward to receiving input to guide us and continuing to do that moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. So when I first met with Ryan and David, they were like, we should have a poll that we can hear from the IRP participants during the webinar, but also for the broader IRP distribution list. So in the chat in a moment, my colleague Pauline is going to post a poll that's going to kind of ask you about a ranking exercise. So how would you rank various different topics? And thank you for that. And the same poll will go out to the broader public. And in about 3 minutes, we'll show you the results. But David and Ryan, any other kind of introductory thoughts on the purpose of this poll?
Well, I'll speak to the poll in general. It's a very high level, it's a very general question. We want it to be suitable for all participants in the webinar today. And really what we're curious about is we're thinking about bringing more distributed energy resources onto the delivery system to bring the benefit in system stability, system reliability, meeting our clean energy needs. There's various priorities that we can place on how we utilize those DERs. And so that's what the polling question is structured around, is what do our participants think the top priorities are, or a prioritized ranking of how we should think about utilizing DERs to enhance the performance and the clean transformation to clean energy in our delivery system.
Thank you for that. So we have the poll question: how should the benefits be prioritized when integrating distributed energy resources into the energy delivery system? So far, one response in the poll. I think we're hoping for a few more until we hit our public comment at 150. So imagine there's Jeopardy music playing. I'll next time come prepared with that. Give everyone another minute or so. It is an accessible question for lay people like me, but it is not an easy one, and so drag around. Right. I see some hands coming up, probably getting ready for the public comment period in 2 minutes. Give everyone another minute. So thank you, Don, for modeling the raise hand feature for this. So if anybody else wants to have a public comment, you have 2 minutes. Each person speaks 2 minutes, and you can raise your hand, and we're going to go in the order in which the hands were raised. And if you're like me and you have trouble multitasking at times, the newsletter from PSE will go out to this IRP list, and the same poll will be there, so you can click on it when you have some non-meeting time to think about your answer. All right. Well, I think, Zach, you can take down the slides there. I want to acknowledge that in the chat, Virginia asked a question. How having to do with Sightline Institute report and decommissioning the gas system. And there's some meaty questions in there. And so the PSE team has requested that they answer that question in the feedback report, but we've noted it and flagged it for them to do some offline thinking and research. Okay. I'm going to share my screen here with beloved 2-minute timer. And so just as a reminder for participants, the way these are structured, it's kind of modeled after a lot of public meetings where at the end of the meeting, it's a chance just to vocalize and voice ideas, but it's not really the back and forth opportunity that the middle of the meeting has. So people will have a chance to share their comments. They will be captured in the notes so that if someone was not here, they'll be able to see it. And it's really just a chance for members of the public and others just to have the floor. So here we are at 1:50. I'm going to promote Don Marsh to be a panelist or allowed to talk. And then let me get my timer going. Don, can I hear you okay?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Great. Well, I'm Don Marsh. I represent the Washington Clean Energy Coalition. Let's see, just going back to the virtual power plants for a second, I heard some references to thermostats, demand response, and communications protocol. Those are all important, but they're not the standard definition of virtual power plants as used in the industry. PSE should either change its terminology or provide a clear definition. Right now, it's pretty fuzzy. Mr. Landers says equity is a central tenet for delivery system planning. So I was surprised that the presentation didn't include more detail on the equity pros and cons of transforming our energy grid away from fossil fuels and towards 100% renewable electricity. A significant benefit of that transformation would be lower emissions of greenhouse gases, which severely impact vulnerable populations in the Puget Sound region and all over the world. It seems like a pretty major oversight not to mention that in a presentation that is focused on equity issues. On the other hand, that transformation is going to cost money, and it would be problematic to increase the cost burden that is already shouldered by low-income customers. There are ways to mitigate that cost burden, and that would have been another great topic to discuss in this presentation. How can PSE help, and what legislation is needed to provide equitable outcomes for all customers? I hope PSE will address these important questions soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those comments, Don, and for your reflections on today's meeting. I'm going to look back at our list of participants to see if I see any other hands. Forgive me while I'm on one screen here. Let's see. Let's give it a moment. I'm not seeing any other hands right now, but let's give everyone their minutes to find their voice. Let's wait another 2 minutes or so. PSE staff, oh, great. I knew if I babbled, someone would jump in. So we have Virginia here, and then I think we have, great. So Virginia, I'm gonna promote you and allow you to talk, and we'll get started with your 2 minutes. Virginia, can we hear you?
I hope so.
Yep, now we can. Great.
Great. So I just want to speak a little bit about the question that I put in the chat, and I appreciate that PSE is going to take the time to think about it and come up with a good answer, because you're right, there's a lot to it. But it has to do with how we decommission the gas system. So part of this was, you know, the gas that's going to people's homes. We know we need to have less of that. It's all leaking. And it's an equity issue, because as I applaud the fact that PSE now has these offers for people who voluntarily get rid of some gas appliances and switch to electric, as long as they have PSE for both gas and electric. That is great. That's an example of the kind of thing we need to be doing quickly. But it's something that just causes random shutdowns throughout the system. What we need is pruning of the system, and the Sightline Institute has a report on it, and the link was in my presentation, my question that I submitted. So what we need is, for example, I live in a little peninsula. If we got everybody in my little peninsula to agree to get rid of gas, then PSE could get rid of all of the gas lines in that system. If only one house does it, then PSE still has to keep gas in all of that pipeline going to all of those other homes, and that continues to leak. So if I do it and somebody else randomly does it someplace else, nothing is happening in terms of decommissioning the system, getting rid of old gas pipes without replacing them, and making sure that we are reducing the leakage. And it's, as I said, especially important for vulnerable populations. So I just hope that people understand this issue. It's kind of a new thing, the idea of pruning the gas system. So I just wanted to mention it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Virginia. And your question in the feedback report will be written as it is so that the link will be available for those who read the feedback report.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, looking back at my list here, we have time for 2 more questions if needed, or 2 more comments, I should say. Looking here. All right, well, while I am just, I guess, using this as a stall tactic, I'll share a little bit about next steps. So Zach, can I ask you to put back the slides, and I'll stop talking the minute I see a hand. So Zach, if you could share the slide deck again. Let's see if it comes up. Thank you. Great, full screen that. So the next steps is that feedback report. So if something comes to mind while you're walking your dog, you have until November 13th to submit that. Pauline, can I ask you to repaste the feedback report link right now? And then PSE will work on their end to wrap up the feedback report and put it back online. But you all have the opportunity to come back together on November 15th, which is an energy efficiency and demand side resources public webinar. So that's going to be, I believe, 90 minutes. Correct me if I'm wrong, PSE. So a break from the usual 60 minutes here, but that'll be a substantive topic. And we wanted to make sure that there was enough time for Q&A because we've heard over the years how important that is. And then lastly, on December 7th, I remember in the last cycle, there was a request to have more sessions specifically on emerging resources, and hydrogen in particular came up. So December 7th, mark your calendar. That will be another webinar, 60 minutes this time, just talking about hydrogen. All of these will have feedback reports. All of these will have a chance for public comment. The webinar format will be used just in line with PSE's work plan through the end of this year. But thank you for the feedback that got us started today. So with our 3 minutes here remaining, I'm not seeing any other questions. And so I think we can just kind of sit in silence, which is not my strength, to see if anyone has anything else to say. David, Ryan, I actually want to give you both the last words. Any thank yous or closing remarks?
I'll just say thank you to everyone who participated today. Thank you for taking the time to attend, and I really appreciate the thoughtful questions and thoughtful feedback and input that you've provided to us today.
Great.
Yeah, and likewise, yeah, thank you everyone for your participation today. Thank you for the thoughtful questions. Just echoing David's feedback, and we'll definitely work on getting feedback back to you all. So thank you.
Great. Great. Well, thank you all again. I saw one more note in the Q&A with Joel having a follow-up question. That will show up in the feedback report, Joel. Thank you for the follow-up to give PSE a little bit more time to think about it. And otherwise, I call this webinar adjourned and just ask that PSEC staff stay until 2 o'clock sharp, just in case there's a final thought. So thank you all, and we'll see you real soon for another webinar. And we will end the live stream at 2 o'clock sharp, just to do my due diligence with these 10 minutes for public comment. Well, thank you, Ryan and David. I know you put a lot of work into those slides. And like I said, the fact that it's a recording and on a website is a lot of people will check this out throughout the year.
Likewise, and thank you for hosting and facilitating.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Okay. My cell phone says 2:00, so I officially call this meeting over. And Pauline, you can stop the live.